Welcome, Senator Rand Paul.
Can you believe we had trouble getting, or the Democrats had trouble getting God into the platform? Sounds like there wasn't much dissension out here on the vote, though. You may have heard there was a little girl, and she wanted $100, and she said she'd do good things with it. And so she wrote a letter. She said, "Dear God, I'd like $100. And the postmaster got it, and he said, "Well, I don't know what to do with it." And so he sent it to the president. And the president said, "Oh, well, that's cute." And he said to his secretary, "Send the little girl $5. She'll appreciate that." So the little girl got it, and it was like $5, but her parents told her always write a thank you. And so she did. She said, "Dear God, thanks for the $5, but next time don't send it through Washington. They stole 95% of it." We are now in the midst of an election that pits one party against another. But I often tell people political parties are empty vessels unless we imbue them with values. Republicans must first decide and clearly explain who we are before we can ask to take charge of the country. Today we are here to talk about what we believe those values should be. I'm a Christian, a husband and a father. I'm faithful to my wife and my family. I try to be good at all those things, though of course we all fall short of perfection in our lives. I try to adhere to the tenets of God's Word in the New Testament. I take seriously my oath to defend the Constitution. And I try to fight for truth and my values regardless of the political outcome, regardless of how popular or unpopular they may be. Dostoevsky wrote that I did not arrive at my Hosanna through childlike faith, but through a fiery furnace of doubt. My faith has never been easy for me, never been easy to talk about, and never been without obstacles. I do not and cannot wear my religion on my sleeve. I am a Christian, but not always a good one. I'm not completely free of doubts. I struggle to understand man's inhumanity to man. I struggle to understand the horrible tragedies that war inflicts on our young men and women. And I've always had trouble grappling with the tragedies that I've encountered in medicine. As a medical student and as a physician, I struggled and struggle with inexplicable disease, terminal tumors in children, when bad things happen to good people, when bad things happen to innocent people. When Mrs. Jones presents with pancreatic cancer, I don't always know what to say or what to think. You can see it in her eyes. She knows what the diagnosis ultimately means. How do you explain something so unjust and inexplicable to her? My first patient as a medical student on the surgical service was a beautiful young woman who unfortunately presented with metastatic melanoma to her ovaries. She didn't die during my time caring for her, but I knew enough to know that her time was limited. And I struggled to understand her tragedy and how tragedy could occur in a world that has purpose and design. Like most doctors, or like most people really, I struggle with sometimes caring too much and sometimes caring too little. I struggle to understand how evil individuals sometimes reap earthly rewards and saintly heroes are martyred by their fellow man. When I read All Quiet on the Western Front, I recoiled at the horror of war. When I read of the merciless and relentless charges from one trench to another and the utter carnage, I wondered, whose grand design is this? When I read Silent Night, the story of the Christmas Eve armistice, I marveled at men who found goodness so profound that it overcame hatred. I was awestruck by soldiers who put down their arms to sing Christmas carols with the enemy and came out of their trenches to play soccer and exchange small gifts. I was amazed at men who were so transformed by the moment that they were left unable to fight and had to be transferred away from the front lines. This is from World War I. I realized, though, that the Christmas armistice was an anomaly and that millions died in World War I and World War II and all the 20th century wars, despite the fact that few, if any, of the soldiers involved knew enough of their foe to want to kill them or befriend them. I'm not a pacifist, but I do think it unacceptable not to hate war. I am dismissive of those who champion war as sport and show no reluctance to engage in war. Any leader who shows glee or eagerness for war should not be leading any nation. I believe truly great leaders are reluctant to go to war and try mightily to avoid war. Though I detest violence, I could kill someone who injured or threatened my family. Though I hate war, I could commit a nation to war, but only reluctantly and constitutionally and after great deliberation. I believe that though some would find this a contradiction in terms, that there is such a thing as a Christian or just theory of war, that a just war is a war of self-defense. At the same time, I am conflicted. I don't believe Jesus would have killed anyone or condoned killing, perhaps not even in self-defense. I'm conflicted. The coarsening of our culture towards violent death has more consequences than even war. Tragically, this same culture has led to the death of 50 million unborn children in the last 40 years. I don't think a civilization can long endure that does not have respect for all human life, born and not yet born. We have a great many problems in this country to solve, but I believe there will come a time when we are all judged on whether or not we took a stand in defense of all life from the moment of conception until our last natural breath. As a teenager, I gave my first public speech in my church. I wasn't very good. I hope I'm getting better. I would think at the time I was awful. My hand shook, my heart pounded. I don't think I'm a natural at this. I thought to myself, I can't do this, but somehow I did, and because I wanted to talk about things that were important, I persisted. I chided my church as a senior in high school for not seeming to care about the not yet born, for looking the other way, and for not taking a stand on life. One thing I promise you, and I promise my constituents in Kentucky, is I will always take a stand for life. Though I believe in limited powers for the federal government, I believe, as our founders did, that primary among these powers and duties is the protection of life. The government cannot protect liberty if it does not first protect life. Ultimately, as Christians, our message should be a message of hope. We need leadership who can find hope and optimism amidst the fiscal crisis we face. We need leaders who can transform the coldness of austerity into the warm embrace of prosperity. We need leaders who can extol the American dream, who are proud of America, who will convince us to believe in ourselves again. We must embrace the values of life, liberty, and prosperity that will lead this country back to greatness, and we should do so proudly as Christians. I agree with Ralph Reed, who often states that the First Amendment is here to keep government out of religion, but not to keep religious people out of government. Our success in this battle will be measured in many ways. Do we stand for principles in our battles? Do we stand with leaders and politicians who embody our principles? And finally, and most importantly, do we keep our humanity and our values intact as we fight the good fight? Ultimately, our success in life is measured in man's humanity toward man. I'm not asking you to love man in the abstract. I'm not asking you to love someone else's neighbor. I'm saying that what is important is to love your neighbor. But even more importantly, to love the people close to you. Success or happiness, or whatever you want to call it, is in the particulars. It's not in the abstract. It's sitting right next to you. loving man or woman in particular might find you happiness. Your interactions with those you know, with those you love, is where you should look. In that realm, I believe, may lie the key to success and the key to happiness while we're here on earth. For me, my serendipity, my discovery happened not in any lab, not in medicine, not in politics. I didn't discover the cure for some horrible disease. I haven't yet solved the world's problems in politics, but just wait, I'm trying. But once upon a time, I did come serendipitously upon a girl at an oyster roast, a girl who makes every achievement I might have or not have important. No matter where you are, what your path is, what path you choose, don't lose track of what are the important things. The important things are the people you know, the shared experiences of the ones you love. And all that ultimately matters as you chart your course, as we all try to chart our course in life, is how you treat the people around you, particularly those closest to you. All else in life ultimately withers and fades. Each of us today must examine what is important in your life. For me, it can be summed up in a dedication from my book that I wrote, and this dedication was for my wife. What are the important things? Scratch my head, silence enough to hear my watch tick. Time, have I time to even consider what are the important things? Even when I sit still in a hurry. But beyond, between, and above all else, you, the girl, my wife, my love, can and do complete all syllogisms my circular brain can create. For me, you are the important things. For us, as a nation, as a people, we need to decide what are the important things. They're not all in politics. They're not all here and present that we can fully understand them. I think there is a crisis in our country. It's not just a fiscal crisis. I think it's a moral crisis. I think it's a spiritual crisis. I don't think the answer is in any politician. I don't think the answer is in any particular law. I think the answer really is that we need to somehow find our way back to God, find our way back. And I think we find that by taking the time from our busy lives, from everything around us, taking the time to reflect what are the important things. I hope we will find that out. I hope we will reflect, and I hope we will find spiritual renewal as a country and a people. Thank you very much.